Thank you. My name is Titus Divala, and I'm a clinician with interest in clinical trials. So I've been a clinician for the past 8 years, and for the immediate past 6 years, I've been involved in clinical trials. Mostly, I've worked under the Blantyre Malaria Project, where we have done clinical research in pregnancy. So we've accomplished a number of cohort studies as well as a large clinical trial involving pregnant women. And I'm currently at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where I'm doing my PhD studies, which are also in clinical trials. So today I'll be talking about the value of community engagement when conducting clinical research in pregnancy. So my research setting is Blantyre, Malawi, and on the map there you see exactly where I have been sitting for the past 6 years. Durand Health Center. This has been a research site since 1997, and its catchment population as of a census that was done a couple of years ago is 200,000. The area has an antenatal clinic, a 24-hour maternity ward, and there's a referral hospital known as Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital, which is 5-minute drive away. The focus of our research in pregnancy is mainly malaria, and we're looking at pregnant women and their infants in most of our studies. And in this talk, I'll be talking about my experiences going through 2 studies. One was a cohort study, and the other one was a clinical trial. Prior to starting the cohort study, having stayed in this area since 1997, we knew that the Malawi culture believes in extended family. It believes in communal values and has some strong beliefs and taboos as well. Pregnancy in the Malawian setting is highly valued, and this value is really attached to the community, and everyone wants to put in their effort to make sure that the pregnancy ends well for both the mother and the fetus. Overall, each area has a leadership structure. So community leadership is what takes responsibility for each village. It takes responsibility for all these inhabitants of that particular area. And they also have great interest in health matters, including pregnancy-related matters. So prior to starting the cohort study, we invited all community leaders. We presented our study design, our plan of achieving the goals of the study, as well as what we expect of the community and what kind of study participants we're looking for. What are the risks and the benefits of that particular study? We had quite a discussion, and then they were very happy, they accepted the study at the end of the day when we had their input built into the design. We held similar meetings with the local health facility staff, as well as staff from the hospital, the referral hospital. But importantly as well, we held similar consultation meetings with community health workers who live in these communities with our potential participants. The cohort study was designed to determine the timing during pregnancy when malaria is most likely to cause adverse effects. So we're looking at outcomes both in the mother but in the infant. We wanted to compare the effects of new versus reemergent malaria infections during pregnancy by genotyping parasites in the peripheral as well as the placenta. And they wanted to assess the effects of malaria during pregnancy on the growth and development of the infant. The key issues you may notice from the highlighting are the fact that all the outcomes, the key outcomes of our studies, require that you see the woman to the end of the pregnancy, which gives plenty of time for anything to happen. And in a study, the key concern really is losing your participants. So participants can drop out at any time in the study. Dropping out of the study is something that we should allow participants to do. It is ethical. If a participant wants to leave the study, they should leave the study. But it's something that we should do as much as possible to avoid. So the key issue that you can handle as a study team, which we have learned over the years, is to do your best to maintain trust with the participants. That's at the individual participant level. But beyond the participant, you have this community that has a lot of interest as well. If the community has concerns, study enrollment can slow down or the participant can withdraw. So you also need to maintain trust with the community. One way was, of course, to consult them ahead of time. And during the study, whenever a concern arises, you go ahead and meet the community to understand the root cause as well as work with them to come to a common understanding, a solution. This study, we recruited 450 pregnant women who were able to have to document outcomes for 330 pregnancies. So essentially, we lost 27% of our participants. We managed to have 330 participants, which is a lot of participants, but losing 27% in a study is not great. What I didn't include here is our recruitment rate as well as how many women discontinued. And I mean, why did we not have why did we lose those 27, like a breakdown? But that is good practice to also look at those numbers. So during the study, what we learned is that women do not have full control of decisions that take place during that pregnancy period. Decisions are guided by those who have experience. So by this I mean women who've gone through a pregnancy before and therefore can be trusted with information to do with their pregnancy. So these are the people that women tend to, or the community expects them to go to those women who are pregnant now so that they can mentor them. The same thing we do in academia. We have mentors. This happens with pregnancy. And in my culture of an extended family, it is often the mother of the woman or the mother of the husband. And the other aspect is power. In my culture, men have the role of protecting the family, running the family as heads of households. And in most cases, they're the ones who have more power in terms of decision making in the family. And essentially, the effects of all these dynamics can come in immediately after the participant agrees to participate in the study, or it can happen later on in the study. So if you want, you can group this way of withdrawing from a study as immediate and late. So the immediate loss to follow-up happens when the participant has consented. When they go back home, they encounter one of those people who are influential on their pregnancy, either their husband or their mother or mother-in-law, who say participating in a study is going to be a problem. It's going to affect your pregnancy, so don't participate in the study. So that woman would either come back to the clinic and tell you that I'm not continuing this study, or they'll come back at their next visit to politely say, I will not manage to continue the study. Sometimes they'll tell you the reason, sometimes they'll not say any reason. The delayed withdrawal happens towards the end of the study. Sometimes it's due to movement of the participant to their home village, if you're in an urban setting like we are. Sometimes it's to do with the fact that they have to go there because their mother has failed to come to that place. Sometimes it's simply because their economic activity that brought them to the urban setting is no longer available, so they need to go back to their family. So what did we learn for community level factors? We learned that the community has expectations of a good outcome for pregnancies. Whenever there were bad outcomes, the community was at times attributing that to study participation. The understanding is that just by being in a study, you increase your chance of having a bad outcome. And some went on to specifically say you can lose your pregnancy because you're in a study, or you have premature delivery because you're participating in a clinical study. And if you look at it, how the community judges is they have to them valid reasons. So one key strengthening factor is the fact that during a study you collect a lot of specimens, but these samples really don't benefit the patient. You collect placentas. I mean, no one is going to benefit from a placenta immediately. You collect fetal papers, which you're going to genotype at the very end of the study. So why are they collecting all these samples? What for? So they make their own interpretations in the process of wondering. Based on those interpretations, they make up the idea that it's not right to participate in the study. So some of the interpretations go as far as that this is a business. They're just collecting these samples and they're selling them abroad. Or they're going to use these for superstitions, which eventually is going to have an impact on your child. So we were at this point planning to conduct a clinical trial. During that particular period, we decided to adapt the consent process, extending the consent process to those influential others. We designed the consent in such a way that when a participant comes, they agree to participate in the study. You ask them to go back home and consult their family. Once they consult their family, they should come back and restate their interest in the study. So it is only when they come back when you actually proceed with enrollment or not, depending on what they say. The key concern, however, here, as you can see, is that we're being inclusive, right? So we're going beyond the patient who should be making the decision. So striking a balance with autonomy was a concern that we had. So to sort of balance that off, the plan was to keep, if you can see, to keep the participant herself in the forefront of the decision making. You're not going to the husband and asking if his wife should participate in the study, but you're asking the wife to go to her husband and have a discussion, and then come back with her opinion. Some women will come and say, I'm going to participate, although my influential others have indicated that I should not participate. The randomized control trial that we conducted after this modification was a phase 3 open label trial. It was investigating a new indication for chloroquine. The goal was to see whether it could prevent malaria better than the current prevention measure, which is sulfadoxine pyrimethamine. So we addressed both safety and efficacy. We included women aged at least 15 who were in their first or second pregnancy. The reasoning being first and second pregnancy is the most risky pregnancy in terms of malaria. The later pregnancies sort of survive the malaria better than the early pregnancies. Our primary outcome for this study was placental malaria. So we needed to get a placenta, examine it under a microscope to see if there is malaria in it. And other outcomes included survival of the infants at 3 months of age. So just to restate what we did, we still sensitized the community leaders, routine healthcare staff, community health workers, and we changed the consent process. During the clinical trial, our enrollment slowed down. When we looked into the community, we learned that there were some misconceptions about study participation. We held community meetings. We went around the whole catchment area from village head to village head. So it's a large catchment area of 200,000 population. We held meetings in each block. And during this period, we learned quite a lot, actually. We had the opportunity to interact directly with those people who make decisions about pregnancy. We addressed their concerns. And during that period, we realized the need to be close to the community as much as possible. But knowing that as you can imagine, it's a large area, you would actually, it took us a couple of weeks to complete the whole area. So it's not feasible to do as part of routine activities of the clinical research team. So how do we establish a constant presence in the community? We established what we call community advisory board. So there was expertise within the research ethics committee of the College of Medicine to do with establishing community advisory boards. We worked with them to establish this community advisory board, which is a body of volunteers from the catchment area who sort of have community interests at heart, but also are connected to the study team. So they act as liaisons between the community and the study staff. To establish the community advisory board, it had to be a careful and inclusive process. So we let the community leadership choose who should be in the in the community advisory board. We first held a meeting with traditional leaders and community health workers. Each village head and their respective community health worker discussed between themselves and decided on 3 people from their area who should be on this board. So they had their own criteria on who can do voluntary work, who is interested in health, who is always available. So they did their best and chose 3 names from each area. We then called for these people. They were trained by the Research Ethics Committee. So the training included research ethics in general. So a lot of the aspects that we cover to do just basic research ethics, human participant protection, and then how research activities go, what is expected of participants, what is expected of the study team, the whole process. And then we came in to present existing studies that we had at the study clinic at that particular time. At the end of the training, it was, I think, a week-long training. At the end of the training, they elected an executive committee to run their affairs with its chairperson as well. So this committee meets every 3 months. These meetings, which are convened by the chairperson, are funded by the research clinic team. The discussions center around what are the community concerns at the moment related to this study. Are some members of the community unhappy with this study? What are the key concerns and how can we address them? They sort of go back to 3 months ago when they had the last meeting. What has happened in between? Has any participant had problems? Has anyone whispered something negative about the study? And what is it and how can it be addressed? Being members of the community, they know well how best to address most of these problems. And then the study team as well brings in their concerns. If there have been any concerns, if some participant has withdrawn and they could not speak, why they withdrew, or if some area is of particular concern, say participants from this particular area are not coming to the follow-up visits, and the study team is wondering what's going on in that area, then the community advisory board members come in to say, to provide explanations or to offer solutions as to how best to address the problem. And then there are also just administrative issues about the community advisory board, like membership or any other changes. Sometimes at these meetings, it's when they have their annual, so they get refresher training once a year at the general meeting. And then the emergency meetings as well. So when when an issue arises from our end, the study team would call for a meeting. First with the executive, and then the executive would call for all the membership to come. So these emergency meetings happen if there's a specific concern that needs to be dealt with immediately. We can, as a study team, could call for the meeting, or as the community advisory board, they could also call for the meeting. It doesn't have to be one specific site. So what are the benefits of community engagement efforts? We believe that having gone through this process, remember when we were conducting the cohort study, we already were able to meet the community leadership before conducting the cohort study. But even with that, we struggled with the cohort study. we identified individual and community level concerns. But when starting the randomized control trial, we had only addressed individual level concerns, which is key to the consenting process and how to involve the rest of the family in the consenting process. But did not address the community level concerns. That's how we struggled with the control trial. We then addressed the community level concerns by doing two things: going around the whole catchment area and then establishing this continuous foot in the community through the community advisory board. We have ever since strengthened our relationship with the community. The community understands clinical research better than it did before, and most importantly also for them as a community is that they have developed interest in clinical research. Some of them would ask what is going to be your next clinical study at the research clinic. What are you doing now? What studies are you running? So those are the questions that you would never expect routinely. We believe it's because we now have more connection with the community than before. And another thing is that when we're doing these community engagement related activities, or when we're training the community advisory board, there's always a lot of information just to do with general health. And we believe that that is also sort of trickling to the community. So there might be a health promotion benefit. Of course, for the study, it has been a huge improvement in terms of participant retention, as well as recruitment rates. This is a clinical trial that we are writing up now. It's going to be published not long from now. So I cannot say exactly what figures we had in terms of participant retention, but I can just say that it was better than the 27% we lost in the cohort study. So to conclude, what have I learned? This experience has been over a couple of years. What lessons do I have for others with interest in conducting research in pregnancy? I believe that engaging your catchment population continuously is key to maintaining a two-way relationship that leads to good participant recruitment as well as retention. Research should fit in the culture as much as possible. But those efforts of trying to fit research in the culture should not cross the borders of existing ethical and regulatory guidance. As much as possible, keeping within the ethical bounds and the regulatory bounds, but doing as much community engagement as possible to maintain the study internal validity, which is heavily affected if you lose participants from a study. Because once you randomize, they leave the study, you can no longer replace them. So internal validity is heavily affected. So these papers will be of benefit to those people with interest in this, who would like to know more about our work. The respective study papers, one is already published and one is in the pipeline, can easily be found by looking for the names that we have there. The first paper is from the person who was establishing community advisory boards in Blantyre. So this is the Research Ethics Committee administrator. Her name is Lucinda Amanda Taylor. So she has written a nice paper about it, and it may be of interest. And the second paper is our experience of conducting research in pregnancy. My presentation has really been about my experiences and the experiences of being in a research team that was built long time ago in this community. I must say that this community has been fantastic, and the women and their infants were part and parcel of what has built all this knowledge that I'm sharing today. And the members of the CAG are always available to give support as well as advice on how we can manage our catchment population. The routine health workers have been part of my experience, as well as my fellow investigators and staff of the Planta Malaria Project, an excellent center that has brought out a lot of research papers on malaria and how to prevent it and how to treat it. The work of the Planta Malaria Project is sponsored by 3 universities. There's the University of Malawi and the University of Maryland, and then also there's the Michigan State University, which I did not list there. Our funding for this particular experience was from the Doris Duke Charitable Foundation as well as the National Institutes of Health. This is the research team as of 2014. Thank you for your attention.